This trip was supposed to be different. Not a 2-week holiday, but a 3-month slow travel experiment. I'd booked 2 weeks up front, a condo in Bangkok, another in Pattaya, because it was low season and the prices were good. After that, maybe the Philippines. Cebu was on my mind, but I hadn't committed. Everything depended on how Thailand felt this time. I also came with a mission, to grow this channel and to give the trip a purpose. Sometimes the only reason I left the condo, to walk in the heat or head out at night, was simply to capture content, so I'd have a story to tell. I based myself in Thonglor, away from the circus around Nana and Sukhumvit, which in past trips had felt like open prisons filled with dodgy tourists just drifting aimlessly out of nearby hotels. Thonglor seemed like a smarter choice, more residential, more refined, still connected by the BTS, but without the suffocating tourist energy. At least, that was the idea. The reality was different. The condo I rented was small, more like a rabbit hutch than a home. The roads outside were choked with traffic. The space felt temporary, and no matter how much I tried, it never felt like I could actually live there. I wanted mornings to be about resets, walking, clearing my head, finding rhythm. But nothing worked. Benjasiri Park was too small and crowded. The canal walk meant battling rush hour chaos, and it ended up blocked halfway. Benjakiti Park was the only place that felt like a real reset, but it was too far from Thonglor. Even when I made it there, the lake was packed with joggers circling endlessly. Daytimes became a grind. The heat and humidity pinned me indoors. The pool and gym sat unused. I made constant runs to supermarkets and 7-Elevens for supplies, but it felt like I was always missing something. Cooking oil, salt, condiments. Condo life was supposed to save money, but in practice, it didn't feel cheaper at all. Most of the time, I just sat in the apartment, bored, scrolling through dating apps, looking for someone who caught my eye. But the profiles blurred together, and it quickly felt tedious. By evening, temptation would kick in. I told myself I'd stay in, save money, make the condo experiment work. But once the sun went down and the air cooled, I couldn't. The BTS pulled me back toward Nana, the very place I'd tried to avoid, and there it was again. The neon, the nightlife, the same bars and busy streets. Same old scene. There were sparks. A fun encounter early in the week, an exciting moment in Patpong. But they were rare. Mostly it was routine, predictable, joyless. Even cannabis, which had briefly been part of Bangkok's hedonism, became another dead end. Too much. And I was just paranoid, stumbling home through the noise. By the end of the first week, the cracks were wide open. The condo wasn't a home. The resets didn't work. Staying in was impossible. Going out was repetitive. The rare moments of excitement only reminded me of how much better it used to feel. I'd already booked Pattaya, and with a 60-day visa in my passport, I felt locked into continuing. But deep down, I knew. The cycle was already repeating itself. I came to Pattaya thinking it would be the peak of my trip, a refuge, a place where the chaos of Bangkok gave way to fun, freedom, and maybe even a touch of the old magic. For 20 years, this city had been my release valve, my guilty escape. I thought it might still have something to offer. But what I found was different. The condo experiment was supposed to anchor me, to give me a base where I could feel at home. Instead, even there, I couldn't find peace. Families and tourists in the corridor woke me at 4 a.m. Noise carried through the thin doors. It felt like Pattaya followed me into my own room. Out on the streets, the changes were even starker. The effortless encounters I remembered, The easy conversations, the spontaneous nights, had been replaced by gangs of men, packs of Indians, clusters of expats, cliques of nightlife regulars, all moving together, all competing for fewer and fewer women. Pattaya had turned into a sausage fest. What was once abundant had become scarce, and the atmosphere had curdled. Lust was still the pull, but it rarely delivered. The encounters were there, but the spark wasn't. And when the spark wasn't there, alcohol filled the gaps. A few Leos to calm the nerves, a few more to blur the edges. But alcohol strips away discipline. One too many, two not enough. Nights that were meant to be about fun or connection blurred into regret. Even the nightlife itself felt hollow. Soi 7 was a ghost, a shadow of what it had been, with only a few beachfront bars still hanging on, filled with older guys in vests. Soi 6 was still packed with girls, but most looked worn out. Too many late nights, too much fast food, too many lady drinks. The edge was still there, but it was darker now. Walking Street had turned into theater. More cameras than customers, Asian tourists filming the neon without ever stepping inside the bars. And yet, I can't deny Pattaya still gave me what I came for. Not the fun, not the freedom, but the story. The video I made here pushed my channel past the monetization threshold. In its own way, Pattaya paid for itself. Not through nights out, but through catharsis. By showing me so clearly what didn't work anymore, it gave me the narrative I needed. But the longer I stayed, the heavier it felt. What I realized was that it wasn't just the place, it was the people. The atmosphere was crowded with hardened expats, pushy groups, and weary bar staff, all jostling for space alongside the tourists. Pattaya itself felt confused. No longer the unapologetic Sin City it once was, but not convincingly a family resort either. In trying to be both, it had become neither. It didn't feel welcoming, it felt suffocating. In the end, it wasn't just Pattaya I needed a break from. It was the kind of crowd it now drew. And underneath all of it lay a deeper paradox, the catch-22 that had always defined these trips. I came to places like Pattaya because I was single, but being here, wrapped up in surface-level encounters, meant I stayed single. The cycle fed itself. Trips abroad were both the outlet and the reason nothing changed back home. By the end of the week, I'd had enough. I decided not to extend, not to kid myself. Pattaya works for a night or two, a Saturday blowout where age doesn't matter, where nobody cares how old you are or whether you belong. That part of Pattaya is still real. There's no ageism here. But as a lifestyle, it was broken. The condo experiment had failed, the costs piled up, the crowds drained me, and more than anything, I felt I no longer fit. So I cut it short. 1 week was enough. I'd go back to Bangkok, then try a contrast, a temple reset, and only then decide what came next. Because the truth is, Pattaya isn't just a city, it's a mirror. It forces you to confront not just what's changed out there, but what's changed in yourself. It shows you the shadow, the habits and hungers you built over decades, and asks whether they still fit. For me, the answer was clear. The old habits no longer worked. The lust, the alcohol, the chase, the chaos, I'd outgrown it. And that's the strange gift of Pattaya. It gave me the catharsis to see it, to integrate it, to move on. Walking away was the only reset left. After Bangkok and Pattaya, I needed a change of pace. Lopburi felt like the right detour. Noom's guest house, a small, comfortable room, good food, and a couple of quiet beers, with hardly anyone else around. It was already a sharp contrast to the city noise. Days were about walking to temples and ruins, though the heat and humidity kept me indoors more than I'd planned. The ruins themselves were half hidden by wires and scaffolding, while tourist coaches swept in and out. Still, the atmosphere was laid back. No bar streets, no nightlife crowds, just local Thai life carrying on around me. 2 nights was enough. I ticked Lopburi off the list, felt the reset it offered, but knew it wasn't a cure, just a pause before moving on. Ayutthaya was meant to be the deeper reset. Grander ruins, more history, a step further away from Bangkok and Pattaya. My base was simple but quiet, enough for a couple of nights. Early mornings gave me the best moments. Cooler air, empty walkways, the temples rising out of the mist of traffic. But by day, the crowds rolled in. Buses of European day trippers turned the ruins into checkpoints, each stop a photo and a ticket. The heat pressed down, and what was supposed to feel like escape started to feel like another kind of treadmill. Evenings were no relief. Burger joints, backpacker hangouts, families passing through. It was culture on the surface, commerce underneath, and never quite the freedom I was chasing. In the end, old habits returned. I took a ride out to the edge of town to the places Ayutthaya doesn't put on the postcards, the temples of lust replacing those of culture. A couple of drinks, a late-night massage, an experience more tiring than rewarding. By the time I boarded the train out, I knew Ayutthaya was a one-off. I'd ticked it off the list, but unlike Bangkok or Pattaya, I wouldn't be back. And maybe that said as much about me as it did about the place. By the time I came back to Bangkok, the fatigue had set in. The temples hadn't reset me. The lust still pulled me back, and the clarity was unavoidable. The experiment had failed. This wasn't about a bad week or a bad room. It was about a cycle I'd been replaying for 20 years. Condos, nightlife, false resets. Each time I told myself it would be different, and each time it ended the same. I'd even thought about the burning bridges experiment, cutting ties back home, forcing myself to make it here. But forcing it isn't the answer. The truth is, Thailand works as a vacation. It fails as a lifestyle. Back when I was chained to wage slavery, these trips were pure escapism. An escape from the grind, from routine, from myself. But now, semi-retired, I'm not escaping anything. And that changes the whole equation. This time, I made another mistake. I thought I could stop in Thailand first, acclimatize, then move on to the Philippines. But the easy option was always to stay put. Bangkok, Pattaya, familiar, cheap, effortless. Once I sank into that rhythm, the energy to move on vanished. And the truth is, moving on wouldn't have solved it anyway. Cebu, the Philippines, none of it would have changed anything. Just more cost, more running on the spot. That's why it matters where you peak. If there is a next time, I'll skip Thailand entirely, even if it means 4 more hours in the air. Because what starts as comfort here always ends in exhaustion. For years, at least Thailand offered an outlet, a place where lust had somewhere to go, even if the satisfaction was short-lived. Back home, it never does. That pull is hard to shake, even when the joy is gone. And that's why I cut it short after just 3 weeks. So much for the 3-month slow travel experiment. And underneath all this, there was a quieter truth. By my final day in Bangkok, I'd already crossed the YouTube threshold I came for. The mission was complete, and without that purpose, there was nothing left to keep me here. So this story is not just for you. It's a mirror for me. 6 months from now, when nostalgia creeps in, I'll need to remember why I left early. Because Thailand and I have both changed. The old magic is gone. I've changed. Thailand's changed. We don't intersect anymore. If I return, it's as a vacationer, not an expat. This was my last experiment, and the clarity is final.